and welcome to the Creatives Get Real podcast. I am Roben-Marie Smith.
And I'm Sandi Keene, and these are real conversations about the creative life. Hey, Roben-Marie.
How are you doing, Sandy?
I'm doing good. Welcome back.
Yes, it's good to be back from our vacation up in the mountains, and it's good to see you in person. We're in the studio today recording. So
yes,
yay!
we're face-to-face, which is always our favorite.
Yeah. Well, we want to give a shout-out and thank you for all of your reviews on iTunes, and we'd like to read one today. This is from Annie B. of Floyd, and she says, I have listened to all the podcasts while I'm working in the studio. Feels like friends have stopped by for a chat about art, work, and life. I'm probably even older than Sandi and don't like coffee, but I'm learning slowly but surely to have fun with my art. We'll be following Roben-Marie and all her tech-savvy tips on Instagram. I wish I had a 12-year-old around to teach me all of this stuff. Many thanks to you both. Informative and enjoyable.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, thank you, Annie B. We really appreciate that. So, yes, we love getting reviews and hearing from you as well. And I would like to point out as well that for those of you that maybe don't quite get or understand the whole podcast thing, which we have heard, we also have the episodes on YouTube, so you can listen to them. Just pop up the video. It's not really a video, it's just a video on YouTube, and then you can listen to the episodes there as well. So those are, we'll link that into the show notes as well.
Yeah, that's a nice alternative for
some people. It is.
People.
Yeah, I figured, well, why not? Let's give it a try and see. And so far, we've been getting comments, and people are listening. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, whatever makes it easier, right? So everybody can join in and listen. Mm-hmm.
Whatever format you enjoy, we're trying to be there for you.
There you go. So what are we talking about today, Sandi?
This is actually a listener request.
Ooh.
Yeah. We talked about how to become an online instructor for classes, and we had a listener who said, can you please talk about how to teach classes in person? And we're like, heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yes.
So let's talk about it. This is for your first-time teachers. So we're going to talk about what it's like to go through the process of creating a class, and then what it's like actually in the classroom.
Right.
And the benefits of an online versus in-person class. You know, what are the differences? What are the benefits of teaching in person? Because I think there's some big ones.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm coming at this from, well over, 12, 13 years of teaching in person back before really online classes were a thing, really.
True.
And back then, and even social media, there wasn't Instagram or Facebook back then. And this teaching in person is really what got my name out there. It helped me to increase my visibility by traveling and teaching in stores and retreats. It gave me awesome experience. I really enjoyed the classroom setting and figuring out what worked and what didn't work, what I liked and didn't like, making those connections face-to-face with students. A lot of them, even today, I still have contact with. But things have changed even in all of those years. There's some things that are very different. Would I recommend teaching in person to someone who's thinking about it? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it for everyone? No. But you won't know if it's for you or not for you until you do it.
Yeah.
And
I think for me, even if you've decided you're going to become an online teacher, I think it's a necessary step. You have to teach in person first.
Yes.
And that's because you're getting live feedback.
Right.
And you're able to see things that you can't see online.
That's right.
So it's absolutely a necessary step in my book. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And you touched on that. It will make you a better online instructor teaching in person because you're able to anticipate. And we talked about this in a past episode. I believe it was 22 was the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked about becoming an online instructor. That the idea is that you have to find what works for you as far as your teaching and your methods. But while you're filming an online course, the way that I give advice on that is to film it with the editing in mind and as if someone was right there with you and they're learning it so that you're anticipating things that might be asked that you can answer while you're filming.
Right.
And you gain a lot of that insight from in-person teaching. because you're literally experiencing all these different personalities, people in different phases of their knowledge, and it's much easier to anticipate those things when you have that experience.
Yeah, I agree. So I think it's absolutely necessary. I don't think that you can jump from zero to online. I just think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Because there's things that you, just like you talked about, you can't know until you've done this with live people in front of you.
Yeah.
And they are two different animals.
Yes, they are. Preparation, how you market, everything is different. And when you think about it, and everyone's personality as an instructor is different. Being someone who is an introvert, teaching drains me immensely when I teach in person. So not only do I have to prepare and plan for the class, I have to be very aware of what my needs are so that I'm at my absolute best each day. If I'm doing a 3-day workshop in person, or if I'm doing it at a retreat and have multiple courses that I'm teaching all that, I really need to make sure I build in that time to rest and sleep and get my rejuvenation back, because I will not be a good in-person teacher if I don't do that. And so until you kind of go through that and you know yourself and you know what it takes to teach, and we're going to talk about that, because Sandi and I both feel very strongly about the teaching process and what those expectations should be of the teacher, the instructor, when they're in person.
Yeah.
And not everyone agrees with us. But
that's okay, they're wrong.
Oh, Sandi's preaching it today.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think you can get past this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree with you. And you're right about, I also, am introverted. And if you're not watching yourself, you cannot let yourself get depleted.
Nope.
And that's making sure that you're having something to drink.
Oh, yeah.
You don't skip eating.
Nope. No.
When you need a potty break, you potty. You don't put everyone else's needs before your own, because it's like parenting. Your bucket has to be filled.
That's right. Yeah.
To give to others. So it's important to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's those, and I've had to say no to after class dinners and after class social times and getting together after. It's not that I don't want to be social. It's just that I have nothing left, and if I don't get that proper rest and be alone and all, for me, I will not be 100% the next day. I can't do it. So you will figure that out based on your personality. You might be an extrovert who's like, I can go until midnight and I'm fine at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And then we're all going out for pizza. And
exactly.
We're going to a movie. That's not me either.
No, can't do it. And
not on the same day.
No. And it's so important to me that the students get really good individualized attention. They get what they paid for, that their experience is a good one, and that they're leaving feeling like, I am so glad that I took these classes, or I took this class, and I can't wait for the next one.
Exactly.
You really think about it based on the experience that you would want to have as well. So, and your students, every single one of them is the most important student in that classroom. And that's the way you have to think about it. Right. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to, we're getting a little ahead. I'm getting a little bit ahead, but I just feel, we feel very strongly about that.
We do.
Yeah.
And you make a good point. Here's something I want to bring up, is that to be a really good teacher, you really should have several student experiences under your belt. Know what it's like to be a student, because that will help inform you of what kind of teacher you want to be.
Yep.
So when I'm coaching and I have people who are talking about, I want to be an instructor, I tell them when they take a class that they have to take notes. And what did you like? What didn't you like? How did they do things? Is that how you would do it? Where did you have too much time? Too little time?
Right.
Those kind of things are really important. So even before you become a teacher, you need to be a student.
Absolutely. Because that's how you learn. That's how you know what you like and don't like, and how you want your students' experience to be different.
Right.
And that's very important. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's important to not only take classes, but to take classes from a range of people.
Yes.
Like if you can get 5 different people, that would be great. Whose style did you really
Yeah.
connect to, and whose didn't you, and why.
And why, exactly.
Those are important. Let's call that research.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
important research.
It is. It really is. And that impacted me greatly when I started teaching in person.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's dive in. We're kind of breaking this into a few different categories, subcategories, I guess. We're going to talk about basically the where in the teaching. So you have some options. We're keeping this really simple your first time.
Right.
Not big national art retreat.
Nope,
not
you're
going
not ready
over
yet.
to Europe to teach. Not quite yet. But you can certainly open up your home studio, your dining room table, in the comfort of your home where all of your stuff is. Invite some friends,
That's easy.
maybe some followers that you have that maybe you live by and you've kind of connected. That is a great way to start and do something on a smaller scale where you're in more of your comfort zone and you can control things a little bit more than if you were outside of that.
Right. And if you forgot your stapler, you reach across the desk or you go to your studio and get it.
Exactly.
Whereas if you're somewhere else, now what?
Oh, yeah. And that all comes later when we talk about preparation for
That's
sure.
Right.
Oh.
Okay. Another place is an activities room. That could be in your church or at your library.
Oh, yeah.
They have community rooms that they either will let you sign out for free or maybe there's a small charge. Both of those are good places, the church or your library.
Yeah, those are good ones, yeah. And then also, if you live in a neighborhood that has a clubhouse, oftentimes they will allow you to rent those out for events. And that, again, you're still kind of close to home because you're probably right down the road.
Right.
And it's something that you could even have some refreshments. A lot of times they have a kitchen. You can have beverages or whatever. Just keep it super simple. Nothing complicated. I tend to be the one that's like, oh, this idea and that idea. And before you know it, it's like, wait a minute, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Let's keep this simple.
If you're teaching the class, don't even think about making lunch.
Exactly.
You send your husband to the sandwich shop.
That's right.
And he brings back sandwiches, or you order a tray from your grocery store. Do not take on more than one roll.
No. Focus on the class.
Right.
Exactly.
Make it simple because it's more than you think it is.
Yes.
Okay, so those are great places on wares. And there are others too. Maybe your friend has a bigger studio than you do, and you can talk her into letting you borrow it. So now let's talk about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how. So you have this great idea. You have this thing that you've been doing that people are asking about, and your friends want to learn how to do it. So how do you take that idea and you form it into a class?
Yeah. Well, for me, the first step is that you need to do a mock class. The project, whatever it is you need to kind of go through the process, not every little detail, but you need to break it down. Let's say there's like 3 or 4 different components to it. You need to break those down, and you need to kind of do a dry run, basically, and you need to take notes, and you need to figure out, okay, how long did that take? Add time to it, and figure out if it's something you can even do in, say, 1 day.
Right.
Is this a 2-day class? What does this look like? And then also, and I don't know exactly the best way to say this, if there are things that can be pre-done to a certain degree, whether it's cutting paper, guys, do not have your students come into a classroom and sit there and spend 30 minutes cutting paper.
Right.
If you can get that stuff done ahead of time, make that part of the kit and make it really easy for them. They love it when things like that. They came not to cut paper. Now, I know there's times when that's necessary, but for the most part, figure that out. And if there's 3 or 4 different parts to the class, then break those down into segments to where you can demonstrate or demo those parts individually. But I think that and taking notes and creating sort of a timeline of this is how this will go and that will go and where can I fine tune, what could I maybe leave out, that kind of thing.
Right.
So important.
And while you're doing that, that's where you get a pad of paper and you start a separate pad from the notes where you start every tool, everything that you use, you make a list.
That's right.
I used tape here. I used paint here, staples, whatever it is. List every single thing.
That's right.
And it's easy to grab this one thing and then you're like, oh, I forgot to put that down.
And then you forgot either telling the students to bring it or you didn't have it. So
Right.
it's very important to do that and get that list started.
Yes.
Yes.
So every single thing you touch.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think too, and this kind of fits in here, I think, with the teaching part of the kits and the supplies. And we can kind of flesh this out a little bit, but students do not like coming to a class where they have to bring everything under the sun.
Right.
It's just, first of all, if they're flying, it's difficult. Try, if you can, if there's a way for you to provide certain things, factor it into the cost of the class so that they don't have to.
Right.
I know a lot of times if I'm doing a class, which most of mine are specific to things where I have to provide the very specific things that
Sure.
I'm not going to send them on a boondoggle to try to find XYZ when, I will make that available,
Right.
which makes it so much easier for the students. And then I think it's appropriate to say there's a basic supply kit that every student should have.
Right.
That has glue sticks or scissors and all those things.
Pens, pencils,
Exactly,
rulers,
those are a given.
paper trimmer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I think students expect to have to
Yeah.
bring those basic things. It could even include 2 or 3 paintbrushes. And,
Sure.
And 3 or 4 colors of paint, that
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say here as well, please do not give a supply list and then not use the supplies that you've told your students that they need to bring. That just makes us really annoyed as students, It's like,
That's
wait a minute,
true.
I went and bought all of these things and we didn't use any of them. Now, if you want to put in the supply list, these are optional because you might want to use them because other students have liked using them, but they're not necessary or they're just
Right.
optional, then do that. But oh my goodness, don't list like 10 colors of oil paints and then you don't even use but 2 of them. You know what I'm saying.
I
So.
do. I've been in classes where I'm like, what about this $40 worth of supplies I brought? Are we going to touch them?
Yeah.
No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the not happy little, check that box, not happy.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that depending on the format, however you're able to get that supply list to them, if you can email it to them as a PDF or you can just send it to them in an email, just make it easily available to them. And if there's ways that you can provide some links to some things that might be harder to find,
Right.
provide those things. Make it as easy on your students as you can.
Yeah, and I think links are really helpful because sometimes you just need to go to Amazon to see what it is.
Exactly.
It's like, I think I know what that is,
Yes.
but can I see one, please?
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I have that. I just didn't know. Maybe
that's a kneaded eraser. Is that what that's
exactly.
called?
Yeah. What, a book all paper piercer? Oh, I have that. So yeah.
Yeah, I call it a punch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those
great
kind of
point.
things.
Yeah, great
so
point.
A picture, a link to a picture is really nice.
Yeah, very important. Okay, what's the next thing?
Well, let's talk about time management. How do you figure that out? How do you figure out it's gonna? Let's say that you've got this project and it takes you, the teacher, an hour to make it. How long does an hour project take in a classroom? So if that was like the bonus Jeopardy question, what would your answer be?
I would add 2 hours to that.
My answer was going to be 3 hours too.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic, but I would also, again, having kind of done the run through, I'd be like, okay, if I have, and I think what you need to also ask in that Jeopardy question is how many students do you have? Because
True.
if I have 5 students, maybe 8-ish, maybe 2 hours will work. But if I've got a classroom of 15 to 20, you've got to add on more time.
Right.
Because that's just that many more people that need attention and that you need to kind of juggle as you're going through it. So I think anywhere between, 3 to 4 times what you think it's going to be, for sure.
Double is your minimum.
Yes.
If it takes you an hour, you're going to double that minimum. And triple is better.
Yeah.
Because, there has to be time for people to get up and go get a drink or get up and go to the bathroom.
That's right.
Or they have to answer a phone call or whatever.
Yep.
So, triple it, I think, is safe. And I also wanted to say that your first class, please don't have more than 5 students.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it may seem like, oh, what's 5? Yeah, but if it's your first one, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Mm-hmm. So I think like 3 is ideal for your first time.
Yeah.
You can go up to 5, but
don't go more.
Don't go more.
Yeah.
I mean, even don't think I can sneak one more person and do 6. Do 5.
Oh, yeah. And we both talked about this prior, because this is very important to both of us as far as expectations. But I think it's awesome for your students when they take away their project. They literally walk away with what you showed them. This is what we're going to do today. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many times I've been asked, well, are we going to finish all of this? Yes, you are.
Yes, they always ask, are we going to finish it? Yes. And that's a question that I as a student would have.
Absolutely.
It's like, how much of this am I going to do on my own? 0.
And you will build up a reputation. I mean, I guess I can, kind of giving myself some good words here, but in the days past when I would teach at these retreats, there would be students, they would bring their finished projects down to dinner or the social time, and they would be like, well, what class was that? And then they would say, yeah, we finished the whole thing in the class. And they're like, well, who's that teacher? Right. And you'll develop a reputation for students being happy.
Yes.
And actually, because I don't know what the percentage is, but I'll bet it's pretty low.
I know what you're going to say.
Students who take what they don't finish in class and actually finish it later.
Right.
There's just not the energy. There isn't
it's 10%.
I bet it's really low like that.
10% of students who don't finish in class finish on their own.
Yeah.
90%.
I know I didn't.
Goes in the drawer.
Yeah. And that's too bad.
It is too bad because the most exciting thing of coming out of a class is being able to say, look what I made.
Yep.
Look what I did. And to go home and show your family and your friends, I did this.
And what also happens, I think, it's a mental thing as well. Because I know I've heard from students, they make more because they've seen how easy it is and how, oh my gosh, I did all of this in this class. I can do this on my own. Mm-hmm. And then they want to make more of them or whatever. And that's always a good positive thing, you know, because you don't want...
That's a testament to a good teacher.
You don't want them just to stick it in a drawer and then never pick it up again.
You want them to make 5 more and gift
That's
them.
right. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so what's our third topic on this subject?
Teaching methods.
Mm-hmm. We touched a little on that, but let's break that down a little bit more.
But let's talk about teaching method. What's it like in the classroom? What do you do? Mm-hmm. So the first thing that you're going to talk about in your classroom is you're going to welcome the student. Mm-hmm. You're going to thank them for coming. Yep. And that you're going to talk to them about what their day is going to look like.
Yep, that's right.
That day or the next 3 hours or the next hour. Mm-hmm. Set it up so they understand we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick drink and potty break. Mm-hmm. We're going to come back to it. We're going to do this. Give them an idea of what their day looks like. Yeah,
and I think that is so important. It seems maybe often overlooked because it maybe just, we're just going to jump in. But I think it's important for you not to spend 15 minutes introducing yourself, but say who you are, where you're from, because and in this setting, these are probably people you know. But I mean, later on, you'll want to do that if you're not introduced. And I feel really strongly about this. It's one of my weaknesses, but I really try to make it a strength in a class, is to learn every student's name. And it's hard sometimes when you got 20, 25 students, but I like to give out, if the circumstance, say I'm teaching somewhere and they don't do it, name tags. Mm-hmm. Let them write their name on it. If you have the list in advance, you can write their names down. And ask them kindly to wear it because you want to be able to learn their names.
Right.
You can also write it on the table. If there's paper on the table, you can write it up at the end. And when I'm going around the room and I'm teaching, I will look at the name tag and I will use the names over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. It makes them feel special. It makes them feel like you are taking the time because, as I said earlier, they are the most important student. Whoever you're talking to in that moment, it doesn't matter who else is trying to get your attention. They are the student that's the most important.
Right.
Because every one of them are. And I think that really can help you stand out. Because I have a hard time remembering names. Faces I'm great with. Mm-hmm. That's why those help me. Because I can constantly keep looking at them and repeating the names over and over again.
Yep.
So I think it's something so easy and simple, but so powerful and important to remember names.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about how do you teach? How do you teach something? And we both feel strongly about this topic
You just set up at the front table and you kick back and you let everybody come to you.
Yeah.
No.
with a Coke, right?
Yeah.
With a Coke.
Yeah. And maybe some M&Ms or something. Yeah, I'm here if you need me. Just wave. And okay, we're being facetious, guys. That is not the way to teach a class.
Yeah. You really do want to spend one-on-one time with every person in the room. Everyone is at a different level. There are different speeds. Different things are going to trip different people up. Some people are going to just blow through things.
Yep.
And for them, maybe you're talking to them about how to embellish something in a way that's outside of the class because they actually need more to do.
That's right.
And then there's some people that you're helping step by step because this is their first time.
That's right.
Doing something or working in a medium.
Yep.
So be prepared to spend time with each person.
Yeah, and I think too, it's not just, and again, everyone's different and you will find your rhythm and you'll find what works for you. I also like to, depending on how the tables are set up or the seating is set up, I like to get down and kind of like, maybe if they're sitting at a table and I can kneel down at the table in front of them and they're more like eye level with me and I can chat with them. I try to ask personal questions. I try to pull things out of them, where they're from, what do they do, talking about your kids. If they mention something, I try to get a little more information and I literally try to zero in on that person. And if someone else is trying to get my attention, I will say, I'll be with you in just a second, and then I finish that conversation. And it doesn't have to be 10 minutes, even a few minutes. And they will remember that, and they will take that away, and they'll be like, wow, that instructor really got to know me and really spent time with me.
Yeah, she cared about me.
Exactly. Exactly.
And cared about my success.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think by really being in tune with everyone in the classroom and you're watching, because you will see people who seem to be struggling, but they're not saying anything, or maybe they're getting a little frustrated and they don't want to speak up. You can, and this comes with experience, but you can go to them and just kind of spend a little more time with them to try to make them feel at ease and more comfortable and give them some advice and guidance. And then there's the others that you can see are kind of, but you don't want to ignore the others that are doing great because of the others. So you have to really learn to kind of manage that and make it work for you.
Your time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have several people struggling and you see that someone else is finished, sometimes you can ask them, hey, would you mind helping your neighbor?
Yeah.
And that can help you managing people.
Absolutely.
If that comes up as well.
Yep. That absolutely.
And then there's the dreaded, our time is up. When people are really in the zone, and they're like, no, I want to keep going for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you have to go home.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the way that you can manage that is to give them updates as you're going through, because you don't want to sit at the front of the room, demo the entire project, and then send them on their way. You want to break it up where you're demoing or showing parts of this, and then they go and they do that step, and then you say, don't worry if you haven't finished that step, but we're going to come back up, and I'm going to show you some more, so those of you that are there can be moving forward, and those will know what to do, and then still work with them individually. But that way you're kind of gauging that schedule. And you're saying, okay, we're going to lunch or whatever. And then it's, okay, we've got about 2 hours. And I'll sometimes say, not everyone will be in this place, but you should be somewhere in this area. So if you're focusing a little too much on some details, it's like, okay, let's and you can see that happening with students. And you just kind of gently, push them along and move them forward. So.
Yeah, I think time updates are really good. You've got 15 more minutes on this step, and then we're moving on. You can always go back to it.
That's right.
But we're moving on, and you do have to set the pace.
Yes, that's
and
important.
You're in charge of the clock, and you have to stay in charge of the clock, or you'll look up and it was supposed to be over 40 minutes ago, and you're not even anywhere near finished.
Yeah, you can't do that. Really, that's part of the expectation of you guys will finish this project. And if you know that there's an element to it that might be, okay, I'm going to demo it at the end, but it's something like I've had, maybe there was one little simple thing that we didn't quite get to, but it was a little extra as part of the project. I let them know that in advance. Some of them will do it. Others maybe not quite, but at least they knew in advance. This is a little extra bonus I threw in. I'm going to show you how, but then, whatever. You'll figure it out as you teach more and more. And back to when we were talking about the limited number of people, so important, because if you have too many students in your first few classes, as you start getting your feet wet, it's going to be really challenging. It can be frustrating.
And you might actually talk yourself out of teaching more classes because it was a frustrating experience. You don't want to do that.
No, you don't. Mm-mm.
I mean, if this is something that you feel strongly about, you really love teaching, then make sure that you're succeeding along with your students.
Yeah, that's important. Yep.
I agree. Mm-hmm. So do you think we've covered all the basics here?
The basics, yes, but I think we need a part 2 to this.
I think so too, because this is how to teach at the very, very beginning.
Yep.
There is, let's call it professional in-person teaching, which is completely different.
Yes.
And we're going to do a podcast on that as well.
Yep, we will, because it'll dive a lot deeper into things. I mean, everything from contracts to pricing. There's so many things. And there's different types of teaching at that level, whether it's at a large retreat or whether it's a 3-day weekend at a studio space. Mm-hmm. So we'll dive a little deeper into it. But I think this was a good start for the beginner kind of getting their feet wet. Mm-hmm.
Right. If you guys have any more questions, please come to our Instagram accounts. And you're at Roben-Marie. I'm at Sandi Keene. Find this episode in our feeds and please ask us questions. We'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks.
That was a good one.
I loved it. We say that every week. All right. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Creatives Get Real.
We love hearing from you. So hop on over to Instagram and leave us a comment. And we also appreciate reviews on iTunes.
And you can find me, Sandi Keene, at sandikeene.com and my classes at popupartclasses.com.
And you can find me, Roben-Marie Smith, at robenmarie.com. And if you're looking for and need tech support, check out my membership site, makerstechu.com.